everyone, and welcome to week 2 of COMM 335. I wanted to provide this recorded PowerPoint just to give you some information about everything that we've done so far, some tips, what we have coming up for week 2. We'll go over some of the content and then also look forward to week 3. All right, so this week for Module 2, we are informing groups and learning objectives. We will be able to establish mutuality of concern in a work group, describe how 5 power bases affect relationships in small groups. We're going to look at some different factors that can really create trusting relationships with those people in your teams. We'll be applying different principles of effective group communication and also apply effective group communication strategies. All right, so before I dive into the week 2 assignments, I just wanted to give a little highlight of week 1. You guys did a fantastic job with your introductory post and responding to your classmates, so keep that up with all of your discussion boards. I also really enjoyed reading your initial research on your 3 potential nonprofit organizations that you might like to use for this project. And I know that the initial assignment said that it was just supposed to be a 1-page single-space paper. Completely fine that you guys did that. That's what it told you to do. Moving forward, I just want you to know that we'll be using APA format 7th edition. So just make sure that your papers moving forward are double-spaced. And you also all did a really great job on your week 1 learning check. So now for week 2, we have your first actual group assignment. So hopefully you guys have looked at your groups. You have maybe reached out to your teammates. So start doing that now. So we have that first group assignment where you're picking your nonprofit. There are 2 portions to this assignment. You have a paper to submit, and then you also have a discussion board post. Your nonprofit groups are on a first come first serve basis. So the earlier that you post on that discussion board that you have chosen your organization, no one else then can select that same organization. So you'll also see within the announcements that I posted some more information about this assignment because the instructions were just a little confusing. So review those, and if you have additional questions, please reach out. We also have your film response paper, and as I mentioned in the week 2 tips, you don't need to use the films that are listed in that assignment. Those are just suggestions because we know that they will work to fulfill the assignment requirements. If you want to watch a different movie that has a group in it, that is completely fine. And then you also need to do the discussion board post for that assignment. And then again, you have that week 2 learning check, just that quick quiz. And remember that it is due by Wednesday of this week. All right, so pop quiz, which is not a reason that people join groups. You look through all of these. Hopefully you get that the answer is E. So all of the aboves are actually reasons that people join groups. So I just want you to do a little bit of self-reflection here. So what drives you to join a group or not join a group? And what do you think you need to overcome if you have to be in a group where the attraction features aren't there? So I will just give you my personal experiences. And I know that I've read some of these from you. I am an introvert, so it's difficult for me to speak up in groups. So that is something that I have to overcome to be successful with my groups and to show that I am participating, that I am an active member of the group. All right, so we are going to talk some about Tuckman's model of group development this week, and you'll be reading a lot about that in your book. There are essentially 5 different stages of Tuckman's model. There's 4 listed here, so we'll go over those for a minute. So we have the forming stage, and this can be, nerve-wracking for people. You've never worked with them before, especially with this project and this class. You're just meeting each other for the first time. You're on different time zones. you're just a little more cautious when it comes to working together because you do have anxiety. And then potentially comes the storming phase. So you're getting to know each other, and there could be some conflict because maybe two people want to be chiefs and there's not enough Indians, or you might be working together and you have different ideas and you don't know yet how to resolve that conflict. But once you do resolve the conflict, you enter that norming stage. And that's where you understand how to communicate with each other, how each other works. You start getting comfortable in your roles within your group. And then you move into the performing stage, and that's where you're really having productive work. Everyone's cooperating, everyone is communicating. And then the final stage is actually adjourning. So once you've completed your group project, then the group is done. You've adjourned. The thing to know about this model and about teams in general is that you don't always go through all of these phases. Some groups and teams are really fortunate because they don't ever go through the storming phase. Some groups go through stages multiple times. So you might go through forming and then go through storming, and then you think that you're in the norming phase or even have moved to performing. And then there's a setback and something happens and you're back in the storming phase. That's okay. It's just a different way that some groups work together. So be thinking about that as you are working with your team during this class, and then obviously also as you're working in teams in your professional life as well. Now, this is something that's important. So you have your mutuality of concern. That is when you really have a common vision, you have a common goal, and everyone has that same goal. Everyone is concerned about achieving that goal. So hopefully in this course, you all have that end goal of doing a good presentation and paper and everything for your nonprofit organization. And you work together because you have that same vision. Now, there are some issues that, there's problems can arise when you're trying to have that mutuality of concern. So that might be that some people aren't, pulling their weight. Some people might have hidden agendas. Some people might have other needs that interfere with that common understanding. You might just not be working well together. So this is something to think about as you're progressing, is what can you do to establish that mutuality of concern? How can you get everyone on the same page so that you have a healthy and productive group? All right, so you'll also read about group task roles, and there are a lot. I am not going to go through every single one of these just because they're pretty self-explanatory, but you will find that there are different task roles that are established within a group, and then there are also group building and maintenance roles. So for the task roles, these are maybe what you contribute to actually complete specific tasks. You might assume multiple of these roles. There might be one person who is both the information seeker and is the energizer, so they're really getting the group going. Someone might only have one role and other people might have 3 or 4 roles. It just depends on the dynamics of the group. Then you also have, like I said, the group building and maintenance roles. And for your groups, it's important that you have someone who encourages everyone to give their opinions, or if there is conflict, that there's the harmonizer. So these are what really hold that team together so that you can then accomplish those tasks. Now, there is a really good breakdown of all of these roles on page 81 in your textbook. So I think that gives really good definitions of all of them, and that's why I didn't want to go over every single one on this PowerPoint. So if you start seeing yourself working in your group for this class and in your professional groups, what roles do you think that you currently hold? what do you think you can get better at? And another thing to think about with these roles is that you might play a different role in the different groups that you're in, because one might not be needed, so you have to adjust what you contribute. So think about that as we progress through this course. All right, so now I want to talk a little bit about your group climate and how it really impacts the productivity of the team. We did actually at Franklin a training specifically about positivity, because when people are positive, what does it do? It, passes that positivity on to other people. And the more positive you are, the more likely you are to be productive. And it can be the same with negativity. So negativity also rubs off on people, and that slows down productivity. So be cognizant of that as you're working together, because it's really true that the more positive you are, the better, the smoother everything will go. We also need to develop trust among our group members. I know that this can be difficult, again, because we're working with people that we're just now meeting for the first time. But when you can trust each other, that really creates cohesiveness, and you can rely on each other to complete your task that you've been assigned within the group. To establish this positive climate, people need to think about the group. It's easy to say, well, I'm going to do my job and not worry about anyone else. But think about how that mindset really impacts everyone else, because they could be thinking the same thing, and then when you get together to give a final presentation, it just doesn't click. So I know that we're all very busy people, but obviously work on your own assignment, but offer help if it's needed. See, what you can do for the common good of the team. And strong bonds tolerate constructive conflict or constructive criticism. So the better that you guys form a bond, the better that you allow each other to know each other, the more likely you are to receive feedback and use it constructively. And I encourage you guys to ask for feedback and to give feedback, but to do it in a way that is positive. So people also depend on group and personal commitment, and this really improves performance. So just seeing that your group mates, your teammates are committed to the project and to the overall success of the group, obviously it's going to make everything go better. All right, so within teams, we also have 5 different power bases. I'm going to start off actually by talking about legitimate power, because that is when someone is actually put in a position of responsibility. So if you think about it with your teams, a lot of times you elect a team leader. So that person has legitimate power because you have elected that person as your team lead. So we also have referent power, and this is really powerful because it's based on kind of how much you like that person, how much you admire someone. So when you do admire someone and maybe their work ethic or their just their abilities, they have referent power over you. We also have expert power. So if someone is really good, say at PowerPoint, they're going to have that expert power in that area. Or if someone has a lot of knowledge about working in teams or resolving team conflicts, they're going to have that expert power. We also have reward power, and this is what kind of gets tricky, but it's absolutely true. If someone is in a position to get you money or status or power or some other type of reward, they have power over you or you have power over them. So for instance, and I hate using this example, but technically as an instructor, I have the power to reward you with your grade. Now, I don't take that lightly, but it's just a matter of that role. Within your group, you understand that to earn a good grade, that some people have power over you if they're getting the job done or not. And then we also have coercive power, and this is the negative side of it. And that is that you can be punished if you don't act in a certain way. So again, this is something that hopefully you haven't experienced this, but with a boss, they have the power to demote you. They have the power to promote you. So we can go back to having reward power. They can reward you with a bonus, but they can also reduce your salary or benefits. And so that is what we would call coercive power. So the self-reflection for this is based on what you've read about power. Reflect on both your team. I know we have limited interactions with each other so far, but then think about your, professional experiences and what types of power that you've seen and how it has positively or negatively impacted that team or that group as a whole, or how has it negatively or positively impacted you. All right, so let's start talking specifically about the nonprofit group project for this week. I assigned your teams yesterday, so hopefully you've already looked at who your teammates are. So your first step is to introduce yourselves. You have the ability in the kind of groups tab to reach out to everyone. You can use the big blue button as a collaboration tool, as a virtual tool, but I've been told that it was a little clunky, so I just would suggest using Microsoft Teams or Zoom, whatever you are comfortable with, to set up some group meetings. And step 2, you are going to be identifying a community organization to focus on for the project. So you're going to be using your week 1 organizations that you research, talk about those, bounce ideas off of each other, and figure out which one you think will work the best for you guys as a team for this group project. In step 3, you are going to create a group agreement and communication plan. So there is a template for that, for the group agreement, and then for the communication plan and for the assignment that you actually submit this week. I posted an announcement about it because, like I said, it was just a little confusing with what the instructions said. So please read that. Let me know what other questions you might have. And then I also want to remind you to take notes on how your group is using course content as you're going through your assignments each week, because in week 5 you'll have a team debrief paper that you'll want to use some of those course concepts and course content in. So just take notes as how you're progressing through the project. All right, so let's look ahead to week 3. First, you have for your nonprofit group project, the process and initial research. So that's going to be a discussion board post where you're going to start kind of figuring out how you're going to find all of the information about your organization. How are you going to, or are you going to interview someone? How are you going to get in touch with them? What questions are you going to ask them? So that's all laid out in the assignment. You also have your week 3 learning check. So again, another short quiz that is due on Wednesday of week 3. And then you have a competency assessment. So there are very specific questions in that which I'd like you to answer. You're going to kind of reflect on yourself, and it's a little bit longer of a paper, not much longer than you've been writing, but there are specific links in that assignment as well. So that will also need to be submitted and written in APA formatting. All right, everyone. Well, I hope that this gave you a few more details about the assignments and the topics for this week. But as always, if you have any questions, please reach out to me. Have a great day, guys.